What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of D&D and just RPGs in general, you know what's been kind of quiet lately? No major big companies have made any major or big announcements about any TTRPG currently going on, which makes me wonder, is this a good sign that there's nothing happening, or is this a bad sign? Is this like the calm before the storm, before WotC pulls up another some sort of a Pinkerton situation or something similar? I don't know, getting really strange vibes about it, and part of me thinks that maybe something bad's about to happen, but who knows. Either way, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. This recruitment post came across this one and just reads to me as an intro to an RPG horror story. Bolded some key points that came off as extra creepy for me. Looking for 1 to 2 players to join an ongoing 5e 2014 campaign. All the players are either women or femme presenting, not binary, and we intend to keep it this way. I, the DM, am a cis-het male, but I'm happy to provide contact info for current and former female players, attesting that my preference for female players does not come from being a creep or predator. Winky face. Anything followed up by a winky face at the very end, I immediately found as sus. First of all, what is our first sentence? Jesus Christ. Everybody from the players, second sentence, sorry, you know what I mean. First of all, what is our beginning section? Everybody from the players are female or femme presenting and we tend to keep it that way. Does that mean that you have to be female or femme presenting in order to join this game? Because from the first sentence just says looking for 1 to 2 players, and then follows up with everybody has to be female or femme presenting. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like some lonely loser just making himself a harem of women, or for somebody femme presenting. That's literally what it sounds like. Some dude just wants to play in a harem game with a bunch of female players. That's basically what it sounds like. Reminds you of somebody that I know, somebody from my RPG horror story, specifically somebody that literally had one girl that he was stringing along, then another girl he was stringing along, had a third girl he was trying to get together by forcing her to basically dump the current guy that she's with for, I guess, having extra women, and I was madly in love with a woman that was, I think, married and had kids, something along the lines of that. I don't know the full plot point of it, but like, it was some creeper territory. The dude was literally trying to have a harem. It was ugh. I get if somebody wants to have like a poly, and listen, I'm not gonna make any comments about it if somebody wants to be in a poly relationship. Do whatever the hell you want to do, but the way you conduct it, if you do it in a very sleazy way, we're just trying to string women along for your weird like harem adventure, that's not for me, fam. It just also comes off extremely creepy. But this poster is trying to start some sort of like a harem game and continue keeping it as a harem game. Also, the last bit about saying like, I have contacts that can have people basically vouch for me that it's not coming from some sort of a creeper stance or something. It's just really weird to say. If you just happen to be just a straight dude surrounded by a bunch of women and you're playing a game together, but it just was a happenstance, you don't need to have somebody vouch for you to explain that it's a happenstance. Genuinely, you don't need that. You just say, it's just a game. We're looking for extra players, and that's it. I'm betting you though, the only thing that's going on here is the guy literally just wants to be the only dude surrounded by women, and that's why he's putting together this game. Let's continue. In terms of setting, all players are students at HAREM Academy. To the outside world, HAREM is known as the foremost adventure academy in the world. Known for few is that the HAREM was made to be a safe space for Priara. When a pregnant woman is exposed to powerful magic, extraplanar power, or similar experiences, there's a chance that the child in utero is charged by magic, manifesting at some point some unusual powers. A person can also inherit being Priara if one or both of their parents is Priara. The world at large is highly prejudiced against Priara, often seeing their innate ability as a curse or a sign of infernal allegiance, so the world is not a safe place for people who are known to be Priara. The Academy provides a safe place to grow and to gain the skills needed to either protect oneself or hide one's Priara nature when one leaves. The campaign is centered on HAREM Academy, unsurprisingly, and all the current characters have just entered the upper campus, the equivalent of the university part of the academy. Some are brand new arrivals, having just learned their Priara, while others have spent their whole lives at the academy, coming up through all levels of school. There's a strong emphasis on the campaign on roleplay. I'd say it's 85 to 90% roleplay and 10 to 15% exploration and combat. There's also an emphasis on romance, mostly PC NPC, but for those comfortable with the interest in the idea, there could be a PC and PC romance. PC and NPC focus romance with the single dude surrounded by women. It is a harem game, isn't it? The campaign also does not shy away from sexual exploration or activities of the PCs. It is 100% a harem game then. Confirmed. It's not uncommon for nudity to be described, and our rules to fade to black when clothes below the waist come off. So there could be some touching through clothes below the waist, and shirtlessness or touching of chest is fair game for in session. People who are interested can then text RP their actual erotic encounter, and those posted as optional content for others. If anything RP significant happens during a sexual scene, it will be summarized so you don't miss anything plot relevant if you don't want to read the erotic roleplay. This is literally just the dude's scheme to just be surrounded by women or femme presenting to just roleplay ERP with them, roleplay hanky-panky sex stuff in the discords, in private channels, and maybe DMs, probably everywhere at this point, just so the dude can just ERP with a bunch of women or femme presenting players. He just wants to have a harem that he wants to ERP with. That's basically what the game is. I mean, maybe I'm just misconstruing it, but honestly, everything about this sounds extremely sus, and honestly looks like a harem game for the sake of being a harem game, just so one guy can just ERP with a bunch of ladies or lady presenting people. Maybe some people are into that. Maybe they do want to have a DM that's going to be more about this smutty fantasies and just mostly about roleplay and ERP and stuff and hanky-panky and romances. Some people, listen, to each their own, I guess. To each their own. Does not sound like a game that I'll participate in. I prefer to have my combat exploration. I don't care if somebody wants to do a roleplay or wants to get it steamy, weemy and stuff. Steamy, weemy, is that even a word? Steamy, weemy. I don't like the steamy part is fine. The weemy part is weird. What the hell is weemy? Steamy, weemy. Ugh. I don't like that I said that. I feel weird saying that. But you know what I mean, right? Like, it's just clearly a harem game. That's all it really is. Which, I mean, to each their own. If the players are enjoying themselves, whatever. But honestly, it feels like a disaster waiting to happen. A Arcadum style disaster, if you know who that is, even. Like, I feel like there's gonna be some sort of like Twitter posts, like tweet longers and stuff being posted. My DM started a harem game and he sexually harassed me, and this is my story. Like, I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm just reading too hard into it. Maybe it's actually gonna be like, you know, maybe every player is just consenting to what's going on in this whole thing. But to me, a harem game is just a harem game. You might as well just call for what it is, just a harem game. Don't masquerade it as something else. Let's continue with the next story. Why talk to NPCs when the DM can talk to themselves? Hey y'all, forgive me if the formatting for this post is bad. I don't use Reddit. I made this account years ago to make one post, a Photoshop edit someone asked me to make. But I read a lot of stories from this sub, and I figured I might as well finally get the story off my chest about the worst game of D&D I've ever played. This is about 5 years ago. I don't really remember everything, so this will be more of a breakdown of everything that went wrong rather than a play-by-play. At the time, my only experience playing D&D was with some cousins. I really liked playing with them, but they tended to not take roleplay seriously and be very memey. Nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of fun with that, but I was craving something more roleplay focused. Enter my friend group. I had a Discord server with about 10 people in it, an online friend group that, at the time, considered really good friends. We all talked about D&D, but eventually we started talking about actually playing a campaign together, and I got really excited. So let's establish a cast here. Me, obviously, a water gymnastic cleric who worships a goddess of joy. DM, the DM, of course. Fairy, a fairy artificer who used gun. Ranger, a solid dude who was totally new to TTRPGs, and spoiler alert, the only one who I still talk to today. We never actually put together a game before because only some of us in the server wanted to dedicate the time to TTRPG. While most of us liked D&D, Fairy hated 5e and used every chance they could to bash it and talk up Pathfinder. The only reason she changed her mind was because an Unearthed Arcana came out that had a playable fairy race and she wanted to play it. So we made a character and got ready to play. There was going to be a fourth member of our party, but due to scheduling reasons, they dropped out before the first session. No problem, life stuff happens. Because I didn't have a session 0 or anything, I was so new to TTRPGs that I didn't really think much of it. And the DM announced, since our party was short a person, for balance reasons they made his own DMPC, a rogue. Again, being new to TTRPGs, I thought this was fun. Like the DM got to DM and play with us. Oh, how little I knew. Session zeros are definitely kind of an important thing to have nowadays, now that we fully understand the purpose for session zeros. But just in general, I think having basically just touching base with the players about the type of campaign you want to run, the do's and don'ts, about expectations and stuff is just important. Whether you call them session zero or just, you know, pre-session stuff or pre-session working out stuff, I don't know. Session zero is just a decent title for it and just decent name for it. But as long as you figure out like the expectations and, you know, limitations of everybody and what kind of campaign, what kind of expected things is going to be part of the campaign, I think it's all all well and good. Also, DMPCs can be done fairly well as long as they're playing as a support role instead of playing as an actual player over at the table. If they're assisting the party in some way, I think it's perfectly well and good and fine. I like filling in, you know, little gaps here and there. Like, let's say a party is full of tanks and DPS and they need a healer. Oh, there you go. They have a cleric now that can basically keep them alive, make them, you know, have the more intense fights and stuff. As long as the DMPC doesn't completely overshadow the party, then I think it's all well and good and can be handled just fine. Let's continue. Anyone who's been on this sub for any amount of time knows what happens next. It was small at first. We'll be having a conversation with an NPC, and after a little bit of the NPC would pipe up and ask the question the DM obviously wanted to use to move the plot forward. At first I really didn't even notice, to be honest, as we were off on an adventure. The cracks were not hard to find though. While it wasn't all bad, the fairy player was also a problem. She roleplayed her fairy as a very, for lack of a better term, spacey. Nothing inherently wrong with that, but all her character cared about was messing around with technology. Also, remember how I said she hated 5e? Yeah, she let us know that often, complaining in fights whenever she missed and how she didn't feel like her character could do anything, and how in Pathfinder, yada yada. But in Pathfinder you can also miss as well, so like the point is kind of moot. I don't know. Listen, if you're playing a system you don't like, how about you just don't play the system? Problem solved. I solved your biggest issues. You're welcome. You could send the paycheck to my household. I don't know. Let's continue. Now having one party member be not very active in roleplay outside of their character's gimmick, so to speak, would not be the end of the world. And that's something I complain about. Unfortunately, like I said, Ranger was a brand new player and obviously trying his best to figure out how to roleplay in a TTRPG like this. I don't have a single bad thing to say about Ranger. He actually did great, and again, I still talk to him to this day, but with such a small party, it kind of led me to have to take the reins more than I would have liked. Or that would be the case if I had been able to say more than 3 sentences in conversation with the NPCs, because our DM had at one point said he made his DMPC to be the face of the party. The longer the game went on, the more and more his DMPC started to take over conversations with almost every NPC. Surprisingly, unlike a lot of horror stories I've seen, the plot wasn't centered around his DMPC. It's not like his DMPC was the most powerful dude in existence that we were supposed to worship. No, it was simply that when we started a conversation with an NPC, after we said a few things, his DMPC just fully took over the conversation. How does a DM do that? Basically just talking to yourself. Why would you do that? Why would you find that interesting? That sounds so boring to me. The whole point of NPCs interacting with players, you know, the players, not the NPCs, is so that you can give the players the specific information. It's one thing if, let's say, for example, you want to give suggestions as an NPC on what the players could do in this potential situation, or could give them some information in case the NPC would know, like, I don't know, let's say for example, in my experience right now, you choose my campaign as an example. Right now, I have a couple players that are traveling down to the south over to the dwarven mountains of Stonehelm. There, they're accompanied by a cleric of Saloon, who specifically is working with a paladin of Saloon, one of my players, in order to thwart the cult of Shar. Shar, Saloon, the, you know, kind of the yin and yang, the light and dark. It's a whole big thing. I'm not sure if you played Baldur's Gate, but in there, if there's any sort of Saloon related question comes up, or any kind of question related to like the task, the mission at hand, or whatever, or to anything that's related to the main mission of thwarting the cult, the NPC there, the cleric, is always going to be able to give some sort of information and fill in some gaps here and there if the players are confused. Maybe offer suggestions of, maybe we should talk to this person or that person. Maybe there's a contact you guys have over the Adventurers Guild that you could try to reach out to. You know, kind of push them along and lead them along without specifically setting up some sort of insane, like, hard rails for the players to follow. Also, the party decided to take along a drow NPC they rescued from a forest where a bunch of drow refugees would live at in order to try to return it to the Underdark, because apparently she was banished from the Underdark and they want to try to help her. Plus, Mary kind of stole the girl away from her home or second home, and now she wants to try to make amends and return her back to home. And she made a little bond because she's a druid and the drow girl is a druid as well. It's kind of adorable actually. But if they have any kind of Underdark or like drow question there and stuff, or any kind of questions about drow culture and whatever, there's an NPC there to kind of help them and offer them stuff, like maybe teach them Undercommon, which they have used her to learn Undercommon, which has been kind of cool. But the one thing I would never want to do in this situation ever, and I think any DM would ever want to do, is make it so that I'm literally just talking to my own NPCs, talking to other NPCs about NPC related stuff, because that sounds boring as hell. The whole point is for your players to engage with it. They're the main cast and they're literally just the main characters of your story. If they don't have a spotlight and they're not interacting, if they're the first to interact and learn important information from your NPCs, and your DM DMPC has to learn everything and talk about that stuff, you might as well just read a script, dude. Might as well read a script or write a book, because you're literally just talking to yourself at that point. You have these imaginary conversations that you want to have with the party. You could be having it with the party, but instead this DM is choosing to have it with their DMPC, which is extremely stupid, because you don't make the face of the party your DMPC. You give him a support role to assist the party, to give him hints, to throw out suggestions, to, I don't know, have some sort of nudge him in a specific direction, to basically pull them in the right direction so they can interact with the plot. You don't hijack the plot from them because they're not asking the right questions. That's not how you do things. That's not how any of this works. I don't remember how many sessions this game went for. I think 8? The plot itself can barely remember because it felt like an endless fetch quest, just constantly going to a place, learning we really need to go to another place, and so on. But I really remember the last session we actually played. We're going to a city that was under attack. For some reason, I think unrelated to the city being under attack, there was a dinosaur outside the city. Luckily, we were able to sneak around it, only to get caught up in combat. After combat, we made it to a person we needed to talk to. The DMPC immediately took over the conversation. None of us got to talk. We were off to talk to another person to the city. Again, more combat popped up. We deal with the combat, get to the next place in the city we need to go. I do have to admit, I had slowly started to check out the game mentally. I really liked role-playing, and having that basically taken away from me at every point was annoying. I was excited for this because we were going to a church to talk to another cleric. Figure my background and status as a cleric were finally going to come in handy. I perked up, entered the church first, and went to talk to the NPC, excited to roleplay my character. Of course, this is RPG horror stories, so we all know what happens next. My character got sidelined by the DMPC. We left the church and almost right into more combat. I swear, it's like the DM doesn't want the players to have fun, but doesn't want to interact with the actual DMPC interaction. Or they're so fixated about getting the story to move forward, they just completely given up interacting with the players. Which, I don't know, I think that last one, if that's the situation, they just completely given up on interacting with the players. That sounds horrible, dude. Why would you treat your players like that? They're supposed to be part of the table. There are other people at the table that just also want to have fun. Let them have fun. Interact with them. Why would you do that? Why would you take that away from your players like that? One of the best parts about TTRPGs and role-playing games is the interactions with NPCs and the role-playing, playing a role, playing a character. It's just fun fantasy, and you're taking away like one of the core parts of TTRPGs. Now you only have just TT. That's all you have. You just have tabletop. That's all it is. There's no role-playing anymore, dude. I know a lot of people will say I should have said something to the DM, voice my concerns early and stuff, but I was and still am very adverse to conflict and not good at standing up for myself. But that was the session that finally got me to message DM about my concerns with the roleplay. Unfortunately, DM didn't understand my concerns since DMPC is the face of the party, so of course he does most of the talking. We eventually decided to talk about it with the other players in the VC, but mostly ended up being very complaining about 5e, so that didn't happen. In the end, we shelved the campaign and decided we would wait a bit, just try again fresh with a new campaign. Okay, I gotta be honest about something. The whole face of the party thing, I hate. I hate that concept. I hate the fact that there has to be a specific role for face of the party, that nobody else can interact with any other NPCs because they don't have the stats for it or whatever, or what have you. They don't have the I guess the necessary caveats to be able to interact with others. Everybody in the party can be a face of the party. Everybody takes on the, I guess, the spotlight in a bit of like a, I guess, fraction after fraction. If there's a cleric to interact with, probably would be good to have somebody talk to, maybe some sort of like a priest or a cleric or acolyte type character, right? Or really anybody should be able to talk to like a priestly character or a clerical type of character, a warlord. Anybody should be able to get a chance to talk to them, interact with them. Just because somebody is the face of the party doesn't mean it should be like, oh, they're the face of the party, they're the only person that can make any attempts to do that. I dislike the idea that the party would be so contingent on having the face and like the skill checks person and like the arcana person. I think everybody should be able to get a chance to interact with the world in some way capacity. Like me, for example, Morrow. I'm not great when it comes to arcana or investigation, or really insight for that matter. I'm not exactly the most insightful person out there. But when it comes to bullcrapping my way through a situation, you betcha sweet ditty, I got that proficiency in deception and persuasion. I got that thing, man. I will do whatever I need to. But to have every interaction be restricted only to the person that has the skill checks for it, I think is really lame, honestly. I think everybody should be able to get a chance to interact with NPCs in some capacity, in some way. It shouldn't just be like, oh, you're the face of the party, you're the only person that can interact with NPCs, otherwise it's gonna be some sort of a failure. Sometimes failure is fun. Sometimes togetherness feeling, makes the campaign and just interactions way more interesting and stuff. It adds more to it. If everybody fills some sort of a role and some sort of a niche and can't go out of it, and everybody else in the party just literally cannot interact with NPCs because they're not the face of the party, then that just sucks to me, man. That just sucks to me. That means that nobody will be able to interact with anybody. Mary doesn't have high charisma because she's not the face of the party. I guess she just can't do silly stuff alone whatsoever. Mike is not a face of the party because, I mean, he has pretty high charisma, but maybe he doesn't have proficiency in like persuasion, deception, or whatever. Then I guess he won't be able to interact with anybody. What are you supposed to do? Make Morrow do everything? Morrow's not gonna be able to interact with everybody. Sometimes he doesn't get along with random people. Maybe he doesn't like somebody. Maybe he doesn't want to interact with somebody. He doesn't always want to be the face of the party. Just because I have high charisma doesn't mean I want to be a face. Everybody should be able to participate. Everybody should be able to get a chance to be a face of the party or try to do some sort of skill checks and stuff. I don't know, man. Maybe some people play the games differently, but I think having rigid lines of like, you have to be the face of the party, you have to have this of the party, to me that sounds restrictive and kind of lame, to be honest. But if you are going to have these kind of stringent roles, give it to the players to enjoy and try out. Don't give it to your DMPC. If you have a face of the party, the one person's going to be interacting with every NPC, don't shaft it as your DMPC being the face of the party. Make one of the players the face of the party. They're the main cast after all. The campaign never happened, thank God. Without going into it too much, I eventually realized that everyone in that Discord, minus Ranger, weren't actually my friends in the first place. Mostly just used me as some kind of punching bag. So I cut ties with them before we could even talk about starting the second game up. After that ended, my worst game of D&D I've ever played. I know it's not the most horrifying story in this sub, but still remains a stain on my TTRPG adventures as part of the reason I'm so hesitant to join in TTRPG where I don't already know everyone involved. The happy news is, I now have much better friends. An amazing roleplay heavy game I'm in with friends I love, and I'm still playing with my cousins, whom are about to finish their Curse of Strahd this weekend. But sometimes I still think about my poor cleric, unable to get a ward in whenever she goes. Since my count is low on karma at the time of writing, I think I have like 2 karma. I don't actually know how karma works. I'm not sure if anyone will ever see this, but if you do, thank you for reading. Feels really nice to get this off my chest. And remember, whenever it comes to D&D and life in general, if it sucks, hit the bricks. Edit. Well, hi everyone. I basically posted this last night. I went to bed, just was able to get back to my PC to check the post 18 hours later. And I'm did not expect anyone to see this post. Thank you for all the comments. I plan on replying to as many as I can. I really appreciate all of them. It's super validating. I see a lot of comments talk about this, so I figured it was worth adding here. I actually don't mind DMPCs as a concept, despite everything above. Funny enough, one of the really early attempts of DMing a campaign, I did have basically a DMPC who joined the party myself. I wasn't sure if she was going to stick with them long term or not, but sadly the game fell apart due to, of all things, tax fraud. Which, now that I'm typing that, probably could be its own post, not gonna lie. I'm not a master DM or anything, but my thought of DMPC is basically as long as the DM knows what they're doing and has some kind of reason to have one, be it to fill a gap in a small party or story-wise or whatever, I think they're fine. But they still have to be supporting cast to actual players. Once they start to do things the players should be doing, that's the problem. In my opinion anyway. Oh, okay, well about tax fraud, I recommend visiting Den of the Drake. I bet he can talk a little bit about tax fraud. He's probably seems to be the most, at least the expert that I know about tax fraud. I may need to contact him coming up this tax season potentially. But anyway, regardless of all that, yeah, I do fully agree with you when it comes to DMPCs. If DMPCs are filling in a support role for the party, they're okay because they're helping the party move along forward and assisting the party instead of taking the spotlight away from the party. If, let's say, for example, your party is full of, let's say your party is for the most part full of marshals and casters and nobody's really there to do any kind of stealth checks or thieves tool stuff or disarm traps, I think it's fine to have some sort of a DMPC there that kind of helps fill in the niche to assist the party but not take away the spotlight from the party. I mean, on one hand, it's probably best to just make sure the party just considers about making a balanced group to make sure they cover all the bases when it comes to adventuring. But if, let's say, for example, the players don't want to cover the bases, they just want to play whatever they want to play, then I think it's fine to have some sort of a supporting cast to help the players and party along the journey without taking over the spotlight. DMPCs can be done well as long as they don't take over the spotlight like the DM did in the story. Don't make your DMPC the face of the party just because they're just de facto face of the party. Let the players be the face of the party. Let every player in the party try to be some sort of interacting force, some sort of interacting factor for the story and stuff, you know? Otherwise, it just kind of feels really lame that you're taking away the fun from the players and everything. I mean, that's just my thoughts, honestly. But I'm a dumb tiefling on the internet. What are your thoughts? thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. Regardless, I think I'm gonna end the video for today. Unfortunately, I'm a dum-dum and I forgot to charge my hands, so I need to go plug my hands into charge. So I'm gonna have to end the recordings here for today, but I hope that I'll come back in the future to do some more recordings here in a little bit. So I'll see you guys soon. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.